All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. Excited to do another Beyond the Numbers episode here. Our special guest today is Clark Abbey. Clark is a big wave surfer, a waterman. I've known Clark for a while, and he's got a great story. Typically on the podcast, Clark, and for the listeners, we talk a lot about Social Security, investments, taxes, all that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, I like to step away from that kind of stuff and talk about, life, leadership, and just everything else. I like the Naval Ravikant quote, money is a tool, not the goal, right? The goal is to live a good life. So I like doing these Beyond the Numbers episodes, and I'm super excited to have you on here, Clark. So yeah, if you want to start off just telling the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate you bringing me on this and giving me an opportunity to. I don't normally like to talk about myself, but sometimes I like to kind of share who I am and what I do and my philosophy. My name's Clark Abbey. I'm from Kaneohe. I grew up in Crown Terrace. I went to St. Anne's School. And then I went to St. Louis for about 2 years, St. Louis High School. Then I finished off at Damien. I'd like to say that I went to the University of the North Shore. I spent a lot of time there, and then I became a lifeguard for the city and county back in 1984. And I also lifeguarded full-time for the Army, and where I did both for like 8 years, and then I continued lifeguarding at Triplet Fitness Center. But right there, back in the day, it was kind of hard to be a lifeguard and raise a family and pay a mortgage. So, I had to kind of step it up and get into a field that was going to pay more. So I ran athletic programs. I started my athletic business career at Triplet Fitness Center, and that was from 89 to 99. And then in 99, I became the athletic director at the Marine Corps Base, Hawaii. And I spent almost 20 years there as a APF employee, appropriated funds employee, a federal employee. And then I finally retired with a pension, and I became the beach lifeguard supervisor on Marine Corps Base, Hawaii, starting in 2017. So it's been about 8 years since I came back to lifeguarding. Through that time, I always chased big surf. Mm-hmm. Whenever I had the opportunity to break away from work or whatever commitments I had, I was out on the North Shore from 1980 all the way to 2011. I had 31 years of chasing sunset in Waimea Bay. I also chased pipeline a lot back in my early days, but what was happening in the early 80s was guys were dying at pipeline. They were hitting their heads in the reef. And so I decided to take my chances in the deep, places like Sunset, Waimea Bay, and Macau, and that's where I was surfing. But back in 2011, I decided, after about 31 years of chasing the bay, I decided to walk away from it. One of the reasons being, and my philosophy was, how many 30-foot waves do I want to catch before I lose everything I loved and worked hard for? Because I didn't surf it. I was obsessed. Whenever it broke, I was going to be there, and I was going to surf it no matter what, and it meant like opening ceremonies or commitments with the family and stuff like that. I was going to be there. So what I meant by saying I would lose everything that I loved and worked hard for and be the king of the ocean, be the king of the surf, I'd rather just turn all that in and just keep everything that I loved and work hard for, my family, my houses, and all that other stuff, But I had a friend that called me once that time was there to kind of walk away from Waimea Bay. And he called me and said, "Hey, Clark, Macau, it doesn't get as big as Waimea, but it still gets big. And when it does, there's only like a few guys out.
Mm.
And, I had a place over there. I had a condo, so I knew that. So, and his name was Tine Furseth, and he was a lifeguard captain there for the longest time. His dad was one of the pioneers in Macau. So the winter of 2011, 2012, for the next two winters, I spent the whole time, every swell, sitting down in a lineup with Tine. And he actually showed me all the lineups at Macau that George Downing, Wally Furseth, and some of the other guys were inclined to look at when the lineup started changing. And so I was lucky that I got to be able to get all those lineup, from looking at Lahi Lahi and trying to figure out how far out we are by looking at Miley Point sticking out, to looking at the golf balls, by sitting at the point in the middle. I was lucky to get coached by Tine. And then
Well, let's
then
yeah, I don't want to cut you off. There's just so much great stuff there, Clark. Let's circle back. Let's start from the beginning and and work our way up to where you are now. If you don't mind, we'll start with the because I
sure.
know you just got. I mean, when I think Waterman, I think Clark Abbey. I know you got so many stories and such a cool journey. I want to make sure we kind of capture the whole thing here. So starting growing up, was there people you looked up to as a kid, or how did you? Was there a moment you knew, okay, you know, this is this is it for me. You know, the ocean. I'm tied to it. You know, this is going to be a lifelong journey.
I I was born into a surfing family.
Mm,
I was also born in a canoe paddling family.
mm,
Although my brother and I chose surfing. We didn't start canoe paddling until later. But so my dad was a surfer. My mom surfed and paddled. They both paddled. But what's so unique was that besides my Hawaiian generation side that really started surfing way back 1,000 years ago. My grandfather, my mother's father, his parents were immigrants
mm,
that came here back in the 1880s. His mother came from Madeira, Portugal, on a ship. His father came from Canada, and they met here, and they had like 15 children, and they lived they lived in Kapilani Park, and my grandfather and all his brothers learned how to surf Waikiki Beach during Duka Hanamoku's days, and um, and that was the start of it. And then my mother and my dad, they surfed and they took us to the beach. I was 3 years old when I started surfing,
mm.
um, and we were surrounded by my cousins, the Akaos, the Hollingers from Kailua. There are many families, and what happened was we played sports in Kaneohe too, because my dad was uh, he was an advocate and a volunteer for a lot of the little league PAL leagues in Kaneohe, and some of those families followed us to
Mm,
Waikiki. And the place that we learned how to surf was right across the street from the zoo. The lifeguard tower is 2E, 2 Echo,
mm.
and it's in between the graveyard's wall and the public's wall. That's where I learned how to surf. Yeah, and I pretty much went further and further out as I got older. But my mother would sit underneath the umbrella and watch us surf. And I remember I lost my board and I had a hard time swimming in. And my mother kept me on the beach and said, "You're not going back out until you swim like 10 laps between the two walls." And so that's how I kind of learned how to swim. I was forced to swim so that I could survive out there.
And so, what
All
years?
my cousins,
What year around is this when you're out there
I,
learning to surf?
I learned how to surf in 1963.
Wow. And so what were the boards like?
We first learned how to surf on foam boards,
Okay.
on those foam boards. Yeah, and then later on, my dad would buy discarded boards and fix them up,
Mm,
and we were surfing like these shorter discarded boards. They're all single fins,
Mm,
But there was hardly any shortboards. They were mostly longboards.
hmm.
And right during that era, right when we started getting good, like in the late '60s, then the shortboard scene came on, and then we were riding shortboards.
Mm.
And then my brother started venture. My older brother, he's like 6 years older than me, Mike Abbey. He started venturing out into the North Shore. Once he started to drive, once he got into high school, all his friends were heading to Velzyland. Um, and so he was a person that inspired me to go out and surf the North Shore at a young age when we could. Other than that, um, once I got to break free from my parents and not having to be around them all the time, which was probably a freshman in high school,
Hmm.
I was able to catch the bus. And we couldn't take our boards because the bus couldn't hold our boards. Not like now, they can hold our boards, yeah.
Right.
So we were body surfing. And so a lot of my friends and I were body surfing. We either catch the bus to Sandy's or we catch the bus to Pounders, and we learned how to body surf really well. I mean, I got to say, the body surfing part of my life really propelled me into another phase of being in the ocean and a waterman. And it
Gotcha.
wasn't until I got my license that I was able to, throw my board in my car or get some racks and throw my board on the rack on top of my car. And I was able to go to Velzyland and Sunset
Mm.
by myself. Other than that, I was actually hitchhiking sometimes to the North Shore. Um, and then, I talked about me lifeguarding and stuff like that. And then my brother Alex, he was an inspiration for me to be a lifeguard because he went into the Air Force as a pararescueman back when we were 19, 20 years old. And then once he became a full-fledged pararescueman for the Air Force, um, I don't know. I just couldn't hold a job. My dad was getting mad at me. He wanted me to go work at McDonald's. I didn't want to work at McDonald's, and then so I called my brother up in the mainland, and I said, "Hey, I want to be a pararescueman with you." And we're twins, identical twins. So he's like, "You know what? We spent our whole life dressing the same, doing the same things. Why don't you just do your own thing?" And so I was like, "Okay, that was out." But then he came back and he inspired me to be a lifeguard, and he helped me. He took me to the Red Cross. I went through all these CPR and first aid classes, and he helped me go through it. And then he was teaching me how to lateral breeze swim at District Park Pool. And I
Mm.
finally took the test for the city, and I passed. And I went through the training, and then voila, I became a lifeguard for the city. And I got to work in the same lifeguard tower at Waimea Bay as Eddie Aikau did. The
Wow.
same tower that was there when Eddie was there. The guys that lifeguarded with him was still there. Guys like Frank Supranovich, Barry Webster, Mark Dombrowski. I got to lifeguard with them. And it was funny how there were four guys there when Eddie was there. But once Eddie died, they didn't replace him.
Mm.
So, yeah. Um,
Can
and
I
that,
can I can I jump in? So, around this time here, you're 20 years old. You're kind of going further into your kind of journey here, surfing and whatnot. Who are the guys that what are the lineups like at that time? And who are some of the guys out there that kind of made a mark on you, and why? Was there anybody that kind of like you looked up to and just thought, wow, that's like I love their style, I love how they charge, or whatever it might be?
there was many guys out there, guys like Roger Erickson, Ken Bradshaw. Keone Downing inspired me. He gave me tips. He was very nice. He kind of inspired me. But one guy that stuck out in my mind who surfed it the best, and I think is the greatest Waimea Bay surfer of all time, and he mentored me throughout the years was James Jones. He ended up mentoring me. He kind of took me under his wing. He sold me one of his Waimea guns that's in the centerfold of Surfer magazine during the '80s. Um, he also custom made me a 10-9 gun that I still have.
Mm.
And I was curious on that part of my journey too, because he shaped, and I wanted to be kind of just like him, but you know, and the thing about it is there's so much good surfers back then out there. Like, and then the Eddie just happened back in '86. I was lifeguarding there already,
Mm.
and I'd be watching guys. I was there for the first open day ceremony. I wasn't invited, but I was there. I was in the tower when that first ceremony happened. There was hardly anybody
Wow.
there. There wasn't a big hoopla like it is right now. Um, but still, I was still surfing it, back then, and and there were so many good guys. But James Jones was just the best surfer out there,
Huh.
and I just idolized him like everybody else did. Um, and so I was lucky. I was lucky that I got to, and I think a lot had to do with me being the nephew of Kimo Hollinger,
Mm.
because Uncle Kimo, that's my mother's first cousin.
Mm.
All their fathers are Waikiki Beach Boys and surfers back in the turn of the century. And Uncle Kimo was looked up to by Eddie and Clyde Aikau, and pretty much mentored them out there in the lineup.
Mm.
I mean, Uncle Kimo's time was during Jose Angel, Peter Cole, Ricky Gregg, Greg Null. That was his era.
Mm.
The next generation was guys like James Jones, Eddie Aikau, Ken Bradshaw. Um, the names go on in that next generation. And I'm
Mm.
kind of like the generation below these guys.
Gotcha.
So my generation had guys like Tony Moniz, um, Mel Kinney, who else was there? Lance O'Connell, he was out there too. Johnny Boy Gomes, Derek Dorner.
Mm.
So those are some of the guys in my generation.
How about since we're talking about different generations, are there any guys where you kind of serve that kind of mentor role that stand out to you in particular out in the Bay?
Um, yeah, there came a time that the guys that were senior to me were not there anymore.
Mm.
They stopped surfing it, and I found myself to be the senior guy out there.
Mm.
And a lot of guys were coming up to me and asking me questions. And one of the guys that actually came up to me like days before the Eddie was a guy named Greg Long from San Clemente. And
Mm.
he came up to me and he asked me, how does he surf the Bay? How does he surf it when it gets big? And a really nice guy. And I just kind of told him where to sit and what to look for. Um, and then about maybe 4 days later, they had the Eddie and he won. And he came up to
Wow.
me. I was ready to paddle out after the Eddie. And he came up to me and he thanked me for all the tips that I gave him. And they didn't announce him winning yet, but then apparently he actually thanked me in front of the whole world for teaching him how to surf Waimea Bay. And I thought that was kind of special to me,
Yeah.
that I got to kind of help people out. I wasn't into yelling at people. I wasn't into screaming or telling people to get off the wave. If I knew that they're in the way, I would just tell them, hey, either you guys are in the runway, either come out or go in, because you guys are going to get people hurt. I
Right.
would never yell at anybody out there. I think when I was out there, when I became the senior guy out there, I was more into cracking jokes.
Right. Right. Having a good
I
time.
was more into cracking jokes, and everybody was just laughing, laughing in the face of like giant closeouts, you
Uh,
know, that are breaking on the outer reef, and then we all get stuck, and then we come up laughing, and then we end up swimming in or picking up our broken boards and getting washed in. Um, but and then there's those days that we get traumatized too. There
mm.
are times that I almost died. Like I could tell you about maybe a handful of times I thought I was going to lose my life out there.
Yeah.
And then you paddle back out you get through it, because the only way you're going to get through it is you got to put yourself back in the environment. And
Right.
that's the one thing I had to learn for myself. Some guys just walked away from it and said, I'm not going back out there again.
Right.
And even macaw is the same thing too. You know, there's days where I'm swimming in because I get caught by like a 30-foot set,
Mm.
and then I gotta come in, and then you just end up paddling back out. Like if not that day, the next day, next time it breaks, and I'm still there. I'm still paddling
Hmm.
out there. I'm 64 years old, and I was gonna walk away from it when I turned 60, but one of my friends, Paul Thurston, that's my partner out there in Macaw, when he gets big, he said, I'm not done yet, Clark. I'm not done. I still have a lot more waves I want to catch. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm still with you then. I'm still with you. So I'm still paddling out with him, me and Paul. Um, and yeah, and there's some other guys that paddle out with us. Brian Higo, he's a lifeguard out there too. He's like older than us.
Mm.
But so I consider myself one of the senior guards out there, the old guard. But
Right.
then there's the young guard, the younger guards, the new guards
Mm.
out there that are surfing. And I can mention a few names. Um, Guys like Chad Kealana, guys like Kaimana Buford, guys like McCunny Fressett. Those guys are the new guards out there. Um, and so those guys actually are leading the way. And I'm just hanging in there right now, just trying not to get in anybody's way, trying to pick up a few waves for me just to say that I surfed it. And just if I lose my board, I just turn into a body surfer and I swim in. Last year, I actually had to wear a cord because the shoreline was exposed. All the rocks were exposed. The sand left the shoreline,
Mm.
and it was like collateral damage if you lost your board inside there. Your board is going to get trashed, and then if you went to go get it, you're going to get trashed.
Mm.
But the beach is big now, so I did surf it already last week, and it was like about 10 feet, and I didn't wear a leash, and I didn't lose my board. So um, yeah, we'll see. I'm taking it one swell or winter at a time for now. I'm not done yet though. I'm not done.
Awesome. Yeah. So when you talked about big wave surfing, uh, what's the difference or what does it take? Like, if somebody's really good at, like for me, I longboard, small waves, head high is perfect for me. I don't go any higher. But you see some guys who are really skilled, but can a skilled surfer make that jump to big wave surfing? Like, is it a matter of just a mindset, or what is it that makes a big wave surfer somebody who can handle all those emotions, the adrenaline, and have the skill to charge big waves?
It's not, Jason. It's not for everybody. The most skilled surfers don't want to go out when it's that big.
Right.
I think it takes a passion first. You got to have a passion to surf big waves. Um, and some guys, when they first go out, or maybe they might spend their first winter out in big surf, it's not for them. They don't want to. They'll reach that height or that day that that's it. I'm gonna call it.
Mm.
Um, let me back up. The winter of 97, 98. I got to surf with Jay Moriarty from Mavericks.
Oh,
He
right.
spent the whole winter there on the North Shore. The guy was with him was his buddy Mike Gearhart, who's another Maverick surfer.
Mm.
The winter of 97, 98. We just got through with Big Wednesday, the day the Eddie got canceled. That was in January 28, 1998.
Mm.
And I'm standing on the beach and the later swells in March with Jay and Mike. And we talked about that giant day. I was going to go out. I was going to paddle out that day, but I realized I don't know if I was going to make it out because there were too much closeouts.
Mm.
And then I seen this glare in Jay's eyes that he wasn't afraid of nothing. But then I heard Mike Gearhart talk reason. He goes, "No way, man. That's where I draw the line. That's where I draw the line on this.
Mm.
If I seen that and I wasn't going to be able to get out, there's no way, man. I'm not going out there." But I seen this look in Jay Moriarty that he would have gone,
Mm.
But really nobody went. The only guy that ended up paddling out was Eric Hosp. He lost his board and he swam back in. He lost his board in the short break. So I guess everybody has their limit. And there's a ceiling in which they're not going to go out,
Right.
and there's also conditions too. Like, is it too onshore? Is it closing out too much? What is it? Waimea Bay closes out more than Macaw. Macaw rarely closes out. It does close out, but and sometimes that's where guys draw the line. Like last winter, one of the last swells at Macaw, Paul and I were the first ones out, and we got caught. We thought we were in the right place, but we got caught by a 30-foot set. And before that set came through, we seen like 10 big wave guns on the beach, waxing up. And then when we got caught by that set, we came up and shook it off and looked inside, and those boards were gone. They didn't come out,
Yeah.
And so it does take a little bit of nerve, and I'd say nerve, and could be a little bit of stupidity too, but it also takes a little bit of intelligence on when not to go out.
Right.
When it's too rough, when it's not worth it, there's too much bump in the water, and you're just going to wipe out and fall, or if the winds are too onshore, like it is over here at Pyramid and North, it's just nobody's out. It's just it's storm surf, So because we want to surf it when it's good, we got a hard time surfing it when it's like offshore in perfect conditions.
Right.
So we gotta pick and choose the days that we surf it, So that's all part of that, part of the experience that I've gotten over the years on, when to surf it and when not to surf it, and when it's good and when it's not good, and actually, when it comes to getting hammered and you go through a life-threatening situation, when to put yourself back in the environment so that you can heal yourself. And that's the only way I think I've ever did to put myself back in the lineup and try to shake off post-traumatic syndromes that we get. I live with it. I live with post-traumatic syndrome because I've been through life-threatening situations, and the only way I can. I'm sorry.
No. So take me through that. You're caught inside with a couple, 30-footers coming, cranking down. What is what goes through your mind? Like, what is the procedure you run through as a big wave surfer? Is it just kind of stay calm and hope for the best, or what is that like? If you take us through it.
Yeah, if I know I'm going to get caught, then, my body surfing experience, I turn into a body surfer. And that's what I do. I'm alone. I'm free. I don't have a cord on. I'm free. I can dive under a wave. I can stay like 5 feet below it and use the cycle of the wave, where the wave is going to tumble me, but it's going to take me back up again because I'm in the back of the wave now. And then I'm going to, right when I know I'm sort of somewhere on the top, I'm going to give a couple extra strokes to bring my head above the water, take a breath, and go back down and relax and not fight it. And then once I come back up, I'll do it again, as long as it takes until I'm on the inside. Then I just let the white water wash me in. And that's the ticket. At Waimea Bay and Macaw, you let the wave take you in. That's your vehicle to go into the beach. And then that's how you get in. But if you have a cord tied to you, you could get held down like 2 or 3 waves and then drown. So a lot of the mistake is like having a cord tied onto you and your board.
Really?
Where guys depend on their cords, but really what happens is the board doesn't come up. And fortunately, with these big wave leashes, they have a pin that separates your leash from yourself, in case you got to do that, But sometimes it's hard to reach. You can't, because your legs spread out, your board stretching, and your leg your leg is stretching, you can't reach it, and you can get held down 2 waves, and that's where you can drown. I mean, guys like Mark Fu, Sam Malowski, Donnie Solomon at Waimea Bay, Todd Chesser out in Alligators.
Mm.
There's a few other guys out at Phantoms that got held down. Um, there's some other guys that actually drowned too at Mavericks. They got held down, but and I can credit that to the leash, you know.
Hmm.
And I think if you're, but the question is, can you swim in?
Right.
Can you swim in? Do you have what it takes to swim in? Sometimes you don't have to swim in. You just let the waves push you in,
Hmm.
and that's the vehicle. Um, no, if you the last place you want to be is in a channel, because that's where the rip is,
Mm-mm.
and then the rip's going to take you out. And what you have to do is you have to swim back into the impact zone, so you
Mm.
have to start over again. So if you can get washed in one time, then you would have saved a lot of energy, you know. But so that's how I deal with it. That's how I've dealt with it all these years.
Gotcha. And so, any particular sessions or waves that just are just burn into your mind as like just the greatest, or is it just too many to count, or is there one that kind of stands out?
There was a bunch of waves on my last session at Waimea Bay, March 15th, 2011. I was one of the first guys out. I paddled out with Maya Gabera and Greg Quinn. Greg Quinn was one of my partners at Waimea Bay. He was such a great surfer.
Hmm.
And a lot of the old guys were done already. And so I just remember just being in this rhythm with the ocean. And I caught so many waves in like 5 or 6 hours. And one of the one of my last waves was like a 20, 25 to 30 foot set that came in, and everybody was like, normally those sets, they feather from way outside. And if you're not accustomed to looking at it, knowing what it's going to do, you end up paddling too far out because it doubles up.
Hmm.
And so normally the guys that actually know what it's doing, they'll turn around and sit under it and then paddle for it. Anyway, everybody paddled over it, and I just was under it. And one of my friends, Tracy Yamato, who was out there, he seen me going for it, and nobody was around me. And I was already getting kind of complaints I was catching too much waves. But anyway, I sat there, and everybody was wondering when I'm going in because I was catching a lot of waves. And here came the set, and nobody was there, and I was there. And I I was in the right position, and then I looked to my left, looked to my right, there was nobody, and I heard Tracy Yamato from the back of my head outside of me said, "Go, Clark, there's nobody there." And then I just took about maybe 10 really quick strokes, and I was in it, and I was dropping down. And it was just surreal. And I was in a perfect spot. I was still dropping, and the bottom was dropping out, and my board was positioned perfectly, and it flung me out into the flats, and I was going like 60 miles an hour, and I had to stand back a little bit because I was traveling super fast. And then once I made my turn, I came up, and the whole thing was just ready to peel all the way across the bay. And I just stood there in the middle, and I just came up on the shoulder of it, which was pretty much almost on the other side of the bay, and it just collapsed behind me. And then I made it to the other side of the bay, and I kicked out before it hit the islands. And there was about 5 guys that were like running for their life trying to get over it. And one of them was Emmy Erickson. She's a good surfer too. And she was coming into her own during that time. And now she's like one of the best female surfers out there. And then I paddled back out, and I just sat there, and I was like, that was it. I just caught one of the last great waves at Waimea Bay in my life. And then I caught a couple more, and I went in. And then I just seen all these pictures of me surfing the bay that day, just kind of popping out on the internet.
Mm.
And then, that was my last hurrah
Wow.
over there. Yeah, it was kind of like a love affair I had with it. And that was my last affair out there. And then Macau became my other affair. I called it the other girls. So Waimea Bay was my main girl, and then for the last 15 years, Macau has been the other girl.
Uh,
Their love
what?
affairs.
So, how do you keep yourself in top shape, right? Because there's definitely, I mean, you're still performing at a high level, you're still charging. Um, this podcast, we talk a lot about retirement planning, and people get to your age, and you don't see too many guys in top shape charging. So, is there any tricks or secrets you got going on to stay out there in the water? I know you do a lot of paddle boarding. If you want to talk about that too, with the Molokai to Oahu and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so in the summer, when the waves are kind of small in the summer, and I'm still surfing, but um, I'm actually paddleboarding. Normally, I paddleboard in the bay, or I was doing a lot of Hawaii Kai runs, which is up by Port Lock all the way to the outrigger or Kaimana Beach. That's the Hawaii Kai run.
Hmm.
A lot of us, and in the early days, we're doing all these uh, Makai Pier runs. Makai Pier out by the Makapu, all the way around the cliffs, around Hanauma Bay, and to Kaimana Beach, and that's like 16, 17 miles.
Wow.
Rugged too. Um, yeah, so the mindset of and I have role models that I look up to that are well in age, but are in super shape. Guys like Mike Takahashi, Mr. Paddleboarder himself, guys like Buzzy Kerbox, man. Those guys are in supreme shape. They're older than me.
Hmm.
Guys like Derek Dorner, uh, Tom Stone. Those guys are in unbelievable shape. Um, so those guys are fitness freaks, and
Hmm.
I look at them and I go, and that's how you got to be. And they're into diet, they're into yoga. I'm not into yoga, but I've been watching my diet because as you get older, let's face it, we're not moving as fast as we were. It's not like when we're in grade school and high school where you're out during recess running around the playground,
Hmm.
and then after that, your dad and mom's taking you to practice. You're burning again. You can't even hold weight on because you're constantly moving. You're at a high energy pace. So we're not moving as fast as we were as we get older. So diet is important. I've been watching how much I eat. I've been watching what I eat, and pretty much I've just been just drinking liquids during the day.
Hmm.
So sometimes I'll cut my diet to just one meal a day. Normally it's at the end of the day. And
Hmm.
then during the day, I'm either surfing or in the summer, I'm paddleboarding and surfing. So those are the things. I think the key paddleboarding complements surfing. Surfing doesn't necessarily paddleboard.
Hmm.
It doesn't actually complement paddleboarding. Paddleboarding is another animal. You're paddling.
Right.
But the thing about it is you got to get used to getting chafed, your chin, your chest, your arms. So lots of times during the winter, like if I'm not doing the Molokai Channel anymore. I kind of stepped away from it. Um, I, I was running it. I was helping Mike Takahashi run it for decades, and then just within the last couple of years, I kind of just pushed myself away from it. I just needed to take a break and do other things that I needed to accomplish. But and since then, I've been surfing every day.
Hmm.
I've been surfing every day. I got to catch a wave every day. I got to stand up on my surfboard,
Right.
and that's been my goal to surf every day. And if once I catch a wave, I've accomplished something.
Hmm.
Um, Together with a lot of paddling, some days I'll stay out like maybe for just like 15, 20 minutes. But if the waves are good, I'll be out for like 2 hours, maybe three. Um, I'm not out for 8 hours like I was back in my younger days. I'd
Hmm.
stay out for eight hours, and
Right.
guys would like be paddling out Snicker bars to me just so that I could eat in the middle because they know I'd be hungry. Guys like Ian Masterson, um, and so yeah, and Ian Masterson is another great surfer that I seen come up, and he had passion for the bay.
Hmm.
Brad Akale, he was one too. Ian, no, excuse me, Jamie Mitchell. I seen him do some great things. I remember when he first paddled out back in the winter of 2000. I think it was like 9. He was pretty good. I remember him, and now look at him. He's in the eddy. Some other guys that I seen kind of climbed their way up, and they were younger. When I was kind of the senior guy, was Aaron Gold. Aaron Gold was something else. And then look at him now. He's in the eddy. So there's some guys I seen just was younger, and they're still kind of climbing up, trying to get used to it. And then look at them now; they're proud of those kids. Anyway,
Yeah, I remember Clark. It's probably been about I don't know. It's probably been close to 15 years. I don't know, maybe less. Maybe it's been like 13 years. But I did a little bit of training with you for a very short while doing paddle boarding. And at this time I was a fitness trainer. I was in the best shape of my life. And and we would go out and you would blow the doors off me. Traded in the bay. And I think what the non-paddlers don't see is what that sport is really about is, I mean, the physical aspect is there, uh, but it's having that kind of sixth sense to connect the bumps. I mean, that's you, and you were so good at doing that, where it was like I look over and it would seem like you were trying half as hard as I was, but you were going twice as fast.
were you on a Craig Richmond at that time?
I can't
I think I
recall.
sold that. I
Oh,
sold that to you. The blue board, right? The blue board.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It was like a 15 footer.
I believe so. Right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. If you go back to the early paddleboarders, guys like George Downing, who won the Catalina, he was a big wave surfer. Uncle George was like a champion paddleboarder.
Hmm.
And I think he would credit paddleboarding for his paddling into big surf.
Hmm.
Who else was there? Laird Hamilton?
Hmm.
Him and Buzzy were paddleboarders. Tom Stone and I, we paddled across the Molokai Channel before the Molokai Tualu paddleboard race was even done,
Hmm.
even started, and we just wanted to prove something. Um, and so, paddleboarding, it was something that a lot of the big wave surfers did because we we did it in the summer because we didn't have the money to change that red dot, the red dot on the weather screen.
Oh, right, right, right.
Chasing the red dot is like chasing that storm that you see on the weather screen. We didn't have money to go and travel to chase places in Mexico or some far off place in the other side of the world. So we stayed home because we had families, we had to work. And so paddleboarding was that thing that kind of kept us in shape until the winter got big. And then after that, those boards went under the house. And then out came our big wave guns, our surfboards. So, we learned that from guys like Uncle George, guys like Mike Takahashi, and then we kept doing it. But my dad paddleboard too. He was an avid paddleboarder. Dickie Boy Abbey, that was my dad. Um, Kind of a legendary surfer. He paddleboarded back in the days, and he canoe paddled and he surfed Waikiki. My dad was my hero, as I was growing up, um, and he was another inspiration to me.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Before the magazines and before everything kind of blew up in surfing, there was probably, like you're kind of alluding to, a ton of these legends out there just charging for the love of it, right? Without the magazines, the sponsors, and the recognition.
Yeah, let me talk. Can I talk about that too?
Sure.
Okay, so when I was younger and I was in grade school to high school, and I was surfing, and my brother and I wanted to enter these surf contests, in Waikiki. And my mother looked at me and she said, "Your grandfather surfed for the love of it." And my grandfather's a surfing legend too.
Mm.
I mean, he made his own boards, and he was, it was one of the brothers that was surfing Waikiki Beach almost every day. And so, but I had a sour taste in my mouth on that. But guess who won that conversation? My mother won.
Mm,
My mother won. Because till today, I still surf for the love of it.
mm,
I never went down that competitive surfing path. I
mm,
just surfed because I wanted to surf. And yeah, and there was a time I actually stopped drinking because I wanted to focus on Waimea Bay.
mm.
And I was surrounded by a lot of competitive surfers during that time, but I wasn't one. I wasn't a competitive surfer. I was a lifeguard. I chased big waves, and that was pretty much it. And I was a family man,
Mm.
and that's where it stopped. Yeah, and so my mother won. I surf for the love of it.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of like, the connection to the ocean for the love of it, right? Like it kind of segues into canoe paddling. Which I think so I paddled a little bit for Kaneohe before. Um and there was another club in Kailua when I first I'm from the Northeast. I actually grew up surfing in New Jersey, gloves, booties, and all that, trucking it out in the snow, surfing up in the East Coast, and then met my wife, local girl here. So I flew back, and when I first came out, I paddled for a club in Kailua. But the canoe clubs is a great place, right? Not everybody can get out there and paddle out and charge waves, but you can jump in a canoe, get a good workout, get in the ocean, and kind of connect with the community. I think it's just a great place to feel community and feel a part of something. You want to talk about canoe clubs? Because I know you've done paddling throughout your life, right?
Yeah, I started paddling at a younger age, but my twin brother and I kind of didn't like it.
Mm,
So it was my younger brother and my sisters that actually paddled in their youth. It wasn't until um, we're paddleboarding in Kaneohe Bay. We used to do head buoy runs where the coach was trying to recruit. And so, what better guys to recruit than paddleboarders that are in shape?
hmm
So, and that's when I started paddling at a later age. And but meanwhile, my son was paddleboarding. I mean,
mm,
excuse me, he was canoe paddling. So he
mm,
grew up. Aaron grew up canoe paddling at a young age, and then so we just kind of fell in. Me and some of my paddleboard friends, Ian Masterson, Greg Quinn, Pono Warner. We all paddle for Kaneohe Canoe Club, and we did pretty good. And to this day, I still paddle.
mm,
But I have to say that it's a great community sport.
mhm.
It's like a team sport, and there's a little politics here and there, and but I've got to be great friends with a lot of people that I paddled with. It's different, it's very cultural though,
Mm,
and it's so cultural that it goes way beyond um, anything else that I've ever done other than surfing.
mm,
Um, so it had a place in my life. Um, and then right now, I got my granddaughter paddling, so I take her to practice every other day.
mm.
So she's into it. So it's kind of a family tradition
Right.
uh, to be a canoe paddler, and I think for other families within the community, and so it's supported highly by a lot of the community and the politicians. So canoe clubs are a great place to be in the water.
Hmm.
You're in the water, you're in a canoe, but you're definitely in the water. And so I think it helped me understand being a team sport person again.
Mm,
Because when you're surfing, it's just you. It's
right.
pretty individual. When you're paddleboarding, it's just you. It's just individual. But when you're in a canoe with five other people, you're with a team. And so everybody's got to stick together.
Mm.
So yeah, that's what I take from paddling canoe. It's a team sport.
Gotcha. So as we wrap things up, Clark, anything left on your list of things to do in surfing, or is it just you just focused on? I know like, you mentioned Aaron there. I know Aaron's charging big waves too, right? And you have the you have grandkids. Is it just passing on that knowledge and watching the next
Absolutely,
generation?
absolutely. Um, Passing it on, keeping everybody in the water,
Hmm.
uh, providing the resources to be in the water. I'm shaping surfboards too.
Hmm.
I mean, I started shaping 30 years ago, almost 30. Like it's coming on like 29. So that's a big inspiration for me. I've been I don't just shape for myself. I do shape for other people. I don't do that for a living. I don't use it to earn money. I basically sometimes just shape it and have the guys pay for the material. And so that's another spectrum of my life too. And maybe I could talk just a little bit more about it.
Sure.
Um, my logo dates back to the 1880s. It's an upside down horseshoe with an H in the middle. It's a brand, um, and it got introduced to me back in 1997 when my uncle Kimo Hollinger knew I was shaping surfboards and I didn't have a logo. And he came to me and he started showing me this scrapbook of pictures of my grandfather and his brothers, which is his dad, and the other brothers, and they were holding surfboards with their names and with the Hollinger logo because they used to take the surfboards to the dad was a blacksmith for King Kalakaua, and he had a branding iron, so he used to take it to his shop and brand their wooden surfboards.
Hmm.
And then so I looked at Uncle Kimo and I go, "Are you trying to tell me something?" He goes, "Yeah. What do you think?" And I go, "Do you want me to?" He goes, "Yes, I want you to." Should I? He goes, "You should." I did, and I took the pictures, and I had these guys from Expressive Design. Chris took the logo and he created these screen on rice paper logos that you put underneath the board, and it was an upside down horseshoe with an H in the middle. And for 15 years, I was paddling out with my boards with that H in the middle. And I had guys come up to me and ask me, like, what does that stand for? Hawaiian? Because look at me, I look Hawaiian, right?
Yeah.
I said, no, Hollinger. And then they go, Hollinger? Kimo Hollinger? And my Uncle Kimo's kind of a big wave surf legend in the North Shore. And I said, no, yeah, beyond that, like way beyond that, like back in the 1880s. And so I got so tired of answering that question that I decided to spell it out.
Hmm.
Hollinger brand surfboards by Clark Abbey.
Hmm.
And that's the logo. And that's what I've been using. And I knew what Uncle Kimo was trying to do. He wanted me to perpetuate a family that has been surfing for over 125 years.
Hmm.
I mean, what family can say that?
Right.
Without going back to your ancient Hawaiian relatives.
Hmm.
And it came from these immigrants from Portugal and Canada and raised a bunch of kids that spent their time with Duka Hanamoku and the Kahanamokus on the beach in Waikiki.
Hmm.
And and they married all Hawaiians too, and then here we are. And so I think he wanted me to perpetuate the legacy of our surfing family, of that part of our surfing family. So I feel real special that he chose me to do it, and I thought it's a story on its own, really.
It is.
Anyway, that's all I got.
No, no, you got a lot of stories, Clark. And I think, you can't tell the story of surfing in Hawaii without Clark Abbey, without mentioning you in there. There's just so much there. I know we probably missed a ton of good stories. Anything else you want to share before we head out?
No, I really appreciate you, Jason. Thank you. You've been a long time friend. I'm glad you reached out to me because my phone blew up and I lost a lot of numbers.
Mm.
And and I know you're a good lifeguard too.
I don't
And
know. I gotta,
that's all.
I gotta get on your diet. I've unfortunately been sitting on the desk too long, gaining weight. I gotta get back into it.
That can do it. Push away the mouse for a little bit and jump in the water. Yeah, no, that's all I got. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me express myself as a waterman, a family person, and hopefully a mentor to some of the young kids, and being a disciple of some of the guys that I followed. Um, some of the guys that mentored me, guys like James Jones, Keone Downing. I really appreciate him too.
Mm.
He guided me. Yeah, and yeah, and yeah, for sure. It's an honor. Thank you.
Right on. Thanks, Clark.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Katita and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by Toba Financial. For Jason Katita, investment advisory services are offered through Toba Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.